Studiometry 14 has several great new features to help schedule work, plan out weeks, and focus on the tasks scheduled for today. In this video, we'll go over the new scheduling features, as well as the new Today view, and how they tie in together. New to Studiometry 14 is the ability to schedule estimated work hours for specific employees and specific days. Previously, you could create your estimates saying, we're going to do 20 hours of design work and 20 hours of coding, but you couldn't easily plan out who was going to do the work or when it was going to be done. The new features help make sure you're not overextending any employees, or yourself if you're in a single user setup, and they give you a visual representation of what everyone should be doing. We'll start by creating a quick new project and adding some estimated work. First, we'll click the big plus button in the bottom left and select New Project. We'll give it a name, attach it to a client, and then save it. Okay, so now we have our blank project that we want to add some estimated time to it. We can do this in several ways, but for the purposes of this video, we'll use the timesheet menu, enter timesheet option to create a new timesheet of estimated items. The first two things that we'll want to set here before entering any other information is to make sure that create items as is set to estimated, and then timesheet for employee, we'll set this to not specified. If we leave an employee specified here, then all of the estimated work we create here will by default be scheduled to that employee. Now let's add a few line items for our estimate for this project. So as you can see here, we are going to add 4 different types of estimated work to the project that combine for a total of 80 work hours. When we press OK, the estimated items will be created. We can see that the project's estimated numbers went up in the overview, and we can see the actually created items by going to the project's Work and Expenses section. So with previous versions of Studiometry, that was about all we could do in terms of scheduling. But with Studiometry 14 and newer, we can actually take these estimated items and schedule them for days and employees. Let's get started by going to the timesheet menu and selecting Scheduling window. This brings up the new scheduling interface. On the left, you'll see any unscheduled estimated work hours, and on the right, you'll see a display of each employee's scheduled work separated by day. If this is your first time accessing this window, you might have a large amount of old, unscheduled items appearing on the left from projects completed before the new scheduling features were implemented. We recommend filtering this section by clicking on the Options button below the list, and then selecting Show Item Since, and choosing a more recent date. This will filter out all of the old items, and this date filter will persist between launches of the Studiometry app. So let's get started with the scheduling. All we have to do is drag an item from the left over an employee in a day on the right. When we drop the item onto a day, a new window will appear. This window shows us where the scheduled hours are coming from, lets us select the amount of time we'd like to schedule, and then shows us the resulting scheduled time for the newly selected day. You can click and drag on the middle section to adjust the amount of hours you'd like to schedule for the day. When I press Schedule, it will split up and schedule 4 of the available 25 hours for Colin on November 14th. We can see now that the design work unscheduled amount has gone down by 4 hours because we scheduled it to Colin. If we go to schedule another item for Colin on the same day, we can now see in the window that he already has 4 hours scheduled. Studiometry will automatically calculate the amount of remaining time in the day and suggest that when scheduling items. Let's still go ahead and schedule for another 6 hours for him on that day to put him over his daily limit of 8 hours. The scheduling window is now indicating that he is overbooked for that day by 2 hours. Our demo preferences are set up for 8-hour workdays, but you can adjust this for your company by going to the timesheet menu and selecting Calendar Settings. So if we want to resolve this overbooked day, we can simply drag one of the items to another day. Studiometry will automatically calculate the number of hours that need to be moved from the previous day to bring it down to the maximum number of work hours. 10 hours were previously scheduled, so it suggests moving 2 hours to the new day. When we save this, We can see that Colin is no longer overbooked for the 14th. Let's quickly schedule some of the other work items. You can see that as we schedule the items, the hours are reduced or completely removed from the list on the left. Okay, so now that we have a few items on the schedule, let's go into some of the controls, filters, and settings of this window. First, as you can see, the calendar is showing 1 work week and fitting about 3.5 employees in vertically. We can change the display to fit more days or more employees by clicking on the calendar icon here. This brings up the options window. Here we can adjust the day widths. The default is to have the view resized to fit the available space, but you can turn that off to manually adjust the day widths. You can also adjust the height per hour to fit more employees into the view. And we can change the number of displayed weeks. We can also change the displayed start date, and there are also date controls at the bottom of the scheduling window to make it easier to move around. And then there are several other view options here, but the most important is the ability to show worked items next to scheduled items. This will give you an idea of the scheduled work for a day versus the actual work entered by each employee for that day. One quick note, if you're in the scheduling window, you can quickly zoom in and out on the hours by using the Command equal and Command minus options to zoom in and out. If we press these, you can see that the hours are expanded or contracted. It should also be mentioned that you can actually click on the individual scheduled items to bring up the work editing window. This will show all of the hours scheduled for this item, and you can assign or adjust the schedule here as well. So, okay, let's say our company has a few employees, but we have a type of work that only certain employees can do. We might want to filter the scheduling window to show specific employees. We can do this by clicking on the Edit Filters button to bring up the Filters window. The first section lets us filter out the displayed schedule based on clients, projects, and work types, but the second section lets us filter by employees. Checking or unchecking employees will show or hide them from the view. One great power feature we've implemented is employee teams. It makes filtering this window by groups of employees much quicker and easier, and you don't need to remember the skills for each employee when working on the schedule. You can assign employees to teams by going to the Preferences window, Employees section. From here, double-click on any employee, and then in the Tags field, type in what you want to name the new team. You can add an employee to multiple teams. I'll create a couple of teams now. So now that we have our teams created, let's go back to the scheduling window and filter it by the coding team so that we can assign this coding work. We can see that the 2 employees with the coding tag appear in the window, making it easier to see available hours for our coders. Another helpful tip is that the unscheduled work list on the left can have customizable columns. It can be filtered by project, client, or work type. And you can even search through the list of unscheduled work. So once everything has been scheduled, how can we use this? First, employees with the proper permissions can view their own schedule using the Timesheet menu Scheduling window option. And that brings up this same window. There are separate permissions for editing one's own schedule and editing other people's schedules. Another way to use the schedule is with the new Today view in Studiometry 14. The Today view will appear at the top of your groups list. You can turn this view on or off by going to the main window and clicking on the gear icon in the bottom left, and then selecting View Settings. From here, you can enable or disable the Today view. When you select the Today view, you'll be presented with an overview of what's happening today. Your calendar events will appear at the top with their dates and times. Your incomplete to-dos due on or before today will appear next. And then at the bottom, you'll see your scheduled work for the day and compare it to the work you've already entered for these item types. This view is very interactive and can be used to add or edit information regarding the displayed items. Your events up top can be clicked to bring up the information window. With to-dos, you can do many things. You can mark them as completed. You can right-click on them to access the standard contextual menu. You can click on an associated client or project to view the related item. You can actually click on the to-do itself to bring up the information window. And you can also click on the arrow on the right to delay the to-do until a future date, be it tomorrow or a specific date. The scheduled work at the bottom will show how many hours you have scheduled for today. It will be split up by project, work type, and possibly also description, depending on how your schedule was created. You can see the blue line will show a visualization of the number of hours scheduled compared to the total work hours in a day. The green line above that will show how many entered hours you have, matching the work type and project for the day. You can click on a scheduled work item to bring up the Actions menu. Here, you can start a new timer, manually add worked hours, view the original estimated scheduled item, or view the list of matching worked items. Let's start a new timer for this scheduled item. We can see now next to this scheduled item that there is a green circle indicating there's a running timer. We can click on the circle to access the related timer. We can also click on the scheduled item and choose Show Worked Items to bring up the list of items, and we can see our new timer is running in that list. You can double click on any item in this list to bring up its information window. If you're not using running timers, or you just forgot to run a timer for a scheduled item, you can easily fix that by clicking on the scheduled item and choosing Add Worked Hours. This will bring up a window letting us specify how many hours were worked and enter information regarding the work done. Studiometry will let you know how many hours scheduled are available, and you can easily fill that in by clicking the Use Max button. You can also specify a custom amount even if it's above the scheduled amount of hours. You can see the red indicator showing that you've gone over time for that scheduled item. If you want to see an overview, we can also go back now to the scheduling window. Let's click the calendar icon to bring up the options window, and then check Show Worked Items next to Scheduled Items. This will let us see a comparison of the scheduled to actual time for each day, and it includes our newly entered work here. So that's scheduling and the new Today view in Studiometry 14. If you have any questions about these new features or anything else, please feel free to contact us at support.oranged.net.